Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're embarking on an epic journey, a whirlwind tour through 4 centuries of American history. From a handful of fledgling colonies to a global superpower, the story of the United States is one of constant change, conflict, and reinvention. So buckle up, because we're about to cover 400 years in just 10 minutes. Our story begins in the early 17th century. Imagine a rugged coastline, a vast, untamed wilderness. This is the world the first European settlers found. In 1607, Jamestown was established in Virginia, driven by the hope of finding gold and fortune. A few years later, in 1620, the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock in Massachusetts, seeking not wealth, but religious freedom. These 2 settlements, one commercial and one spiritual, planted the seeds for 2 very different, yet equally important, American identities. Over the next century and a half, 13 distinct colonies emerged, each with its own character, economy, and culture. They were British subjects, yes, but a new identity was slowly being forged, shaped by the vast distance from England and the unique challenges of the New World. By the mid-1700s, tensions were brewing. The British Crown, burdened by debt from wars fought on behalf of the colonies, began imposing a series of taxes: the Stamp Act, the Townshend Acts, the Tea Act. To the colonists, this wasn't just about money. It was about a fundamental principle: no taxation without representation. They had no voice in the British Parliament, yet they were being forced to pay. Protests erupted. The Boston Tea Party saw colonists dumping British tea into the harbor in a bold act of defiance. The Crown responded with force, and the simmering pot of resentment boiled over. In 1775, the first shots were fired at Lexington and Concord, igniting the American Revolution. On July 4, 1776, a date now etched in history, the Second Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence. Penned by Thomas Jefferson, it was a radical document for its time, declaring that all men are created equal and endowed with unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It was a bold proclamation, a mission statement for a nation yet to be born. The war that followed was long and brutal. Against all odds, with crucial aid from France, the Continental Army, led by the steadfast George Washington, managed to defeat the most powerful military on Earth. The Treaty of Paris in 1783 officially recognized the United States as an independent nation. The experiment had begun. The first attempt at a government, the Articles of Confederation, proved too weak. So, in 1787, the nation's founders gathered in Philadelphia to draft a new framework, the U.S. Constitution. It was a masterpiece of compromise, establishing a federal republic with a system of checks and balances among 3 branches of government: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. To protect individual liberties, they added the Bill of Rights. This document, this blueprint for a government of the people, by the people, for the people, became a model for democracies around the world. With George Washington as its first president, the young republic set about navigating its new course, expanding westward into the vast, unknown territories. But a dark shadow loomed over this land of the free: the institution of slavery. The nation was fundamentally divided. The industrializing North and the agrarian, slave-holding South were on a collision course. Decades of political compromises only delayed the inevitable. The election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860, who opposed the expansion of slavery, was the final straw for the Southern states. They seceded, forming the Confederacy, and in 1861, the Civil War began. It was the bloodiest conflict in American history, a brutal, soul-searching war that pitted brother against brother. After 4 devastating years, the Union emerged victorious. The war preserved the nation and, with the passage of the 13th Amendment, finally abolished slavery, though the struggle for true equality was far from over. The late 19th and early 20th centuries were an era of explosive growth and transformation. It was the Gilded Age, a time of massive industrialization, technological innovation, and vast fortunes for men like Carnegie and Rockefeller. Railroads stitched the continent together, and skyscrapers pierced the clouds. Millions of immigrants from Europe and Asia poured into the country, seeking a better life and forever changing the face of the nation. But this progress came at a cost. It was also an era of labor strife, urban poverty, and deep social inequality. This period saw the rise of the progressive movement, which fought for reforms like women's suffrage, worker protections, and regulations to curb the power of big business. America was wrestling with what it meant to be a modern industrial society. The 20th century thrust America onto the world stage. The nation was drawn into two devastating world wars. After World War II, the United States emerged not just as a victor, but as a global superpower, locked in a decades-long Cold War against the Soviet Union. This ideological struggle between democracy and communism shaped global politics, fueled a nuclear arms race, and even took us to the moon. Back home, the post-war era brought unprecedented prosperity and the rise of a suburban middle class. But the fight for justice continued. The civil rights movement, led by figures like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., used nonviolent protest to challenge segregation and demand the rights promised a century earlier. Landmark legislation like the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 were monumental victories in this ongoing struggle. The late 20th and early 21st centuries have been defined by rapid technological change and new global challenges. The digital revolution, born in Silicon Valley, has transformed how we live, work, and connect with one another. The end of the Cold War brought a new, more complex international landscape. The attacks of September 11, 2001 ushered in an era of new security concerns and long-running conflicts in the Middle East. The nation has also grappled with economic recessions, intense political polarization, and a renewed, passionate debate over its identity and future. From the election of the first African-American president to ongoing movements for social and economic justice, the American story continues to evolve, constantly being written and rewritten by its people. And that brings us to today. 400 years after those first settlements, the American experiment is still a work in progress. It's a story of incredible triumphs and profound failures, of high ideals and the difficult, messy reality of trying to live up to them. It's a history marked by conflict, but also by an enduring capacity for change and renewal. The journey is far from over. Thank you so much for joining me on this rapid-fire tour through American history. I know we only scratched the surface, but I hope it gave you a new perspective on this complex and fascinating story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into history. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.